been seeing a few names of Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda, so we'll chant a few. Om Vibhave Namaha.
Om Vibhave Namaha.
Om Vinodapriyaya Namaha.
Om Vinodapriyaya Namaha.
Om Vinayashilaya Namaha.
Om Vinayashilaya Namaha.
Om Vitaragaya Namaha.
Om Vitaragaya Namaha.
Om Vedanta Vedyaya Namaha.
Om Vedanta Vedyaya Namaha.
Om Shantaya Namaha.
Om Shantaya Namaha.
Om Shanti Pradaya 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 Namaha. Salutation to that one who gives peace. Peace. Right? Peace. Every day we're so agitated by all the disturbances around the world, around us, in our own mind. And then we say, okay, this Mahatma can give us peace. Somebody external from us can give us peace. And it's one of his 108 names. You know, these 108 names is like, and I'll tell the children this when we're teaching names. I'll say, you know how your mommy will have a name for you? You know, Beta, Beti Kam. And then your grandparents will have a name for you. You know, my sweet angel. And then your teacher will have a name for you, and they'll call you, you know, the menace of the classroom. And they'll continue like that. Well, Gurudev also had 108 different names made by, or written, scripted by devotees of Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda. And one of those names, so these names would describe his very essence, describe what he stood for, what his nature was, what he could do, right? The joy that he brought into people's lives in so many different ways. And one of those names is that Shanti Pradaya Namaha, one who gives peace. So this meaning of peace will have to be understood because we could only know peace by knowing the opposite, it's sorrow. It's sorrow. And each and every day our lives are actually turned upside down, tossed and turned upside down by the littlest of things. You know, if you're dying for that paratha roti at the end of the night, you know, you go back for seconds. The chana nalu and soya. All those nice things on that plate. And you go back again for next, and then you go and you take a bag to carry home. Swamiji says to carry home. Right? So you carry it home. And then so you enjoy that thing so much, and then suddenly, as soon as you step out from the car, you get bad feeling. You have to go find the Tums, the Pepto-Bismol. Right? And you get, so you chose to eat that food, knowing or thinking that it will give you happiness. And it did give you happiness for those few seconds. Or a few minutes, however long you eat. Right? Some people take half an hour, some people take a few seconds. So you chose to eat that thing because you figured that thing will give you so much of happiness within. And then what happens? Well, by your own choice, you've created an agitation in your own body. And you know, you wouldn't say, God, I never should have eaten that thing. You might say it, but you won't mean it. You'll say, why does people serve prayers food again? This is night 88, you know. I don't know what they made tonight. So you put the blame on others. So that shanti, that peace, that happiness can only be known by the sorrow. When that bad feeling passes, then you say, okay, good, finally, you know, I feel okay. That shanti was there. So that doesn't mean Gurudev went and eliminated all the paratha roti from the world. Right? Not that kind of peace he gave. Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda, and any Mahatma, any sannyasi, gave that power of knowledge. He gave knowledge for you to what? For you to understand this world, for you to understand how your choices are made, for you to understand why your choices are even made in the first place. And he gave you that knowledge. He taught that vairagya, right? That detachment, that dispassion for all these things. You know, I don't need paratha roti. I'm very good with rice and karhi. Right? I don't need those things. So I don't need I don't need another cell phone. Right? People have 2 or 3 cell phones there. You definitely don't need another water hose because you're not allowed to. Today that came up again. So it teaches you, without the government interference, it teaches you dispassion. Right? That guru teaches dispassion. He teaches that how to renounce all these things, how to give up. You know, a nice example that's given is a child who's playing marbles. Right? You know, when you shoot the marbles and you hit it and you see who can go farther and whoever wins. That child that's playing marbles, whether or not he wins or loses, his happiness is completely dependent on that thing. If he loses, that's his worst day in the entire world. Nobody could fix that. And then that child grows and he gets older and his attachment to playing marbles is gone away. And then that adult now turns into a grandparent or a parent, and he has to play marbles with his children or his grandchildren. Now that grandparent who was once so attached to these marble playing marbles, shooting marbles, he was so attached to that thing at one point in his life. Now, 20, 50, 30 years later, he's enjoying that game the same way he did when he was a child. He's enjoying that thing very much, but he's no longer attached to that result. Why? Because he knows that marbles it's not a life or death situation. Right? He knows as he gets older, and that's just by experience, his own experience. He doesn't need a teacher to tell him, you know, marbles, let me come and school you on marbles. That's just from his own experience. But this guru now teaches us how to live. He teaches us how to understand this world. You know, if it is that I'm to send you into the surgeon's theater to go and do a surgery on someone, heart surgery on somebody, and you don't know what to do, but you're forced, you know, I don't know, maybe the yellow's too bright for you, say, okay, fine, I'll go, I'm going. And you go inside that theater, and you begin to do that surgery, but you don't know what you're doing. But you'll do something out of fear of whatever it might be. So the same way now, we're living in this world. We don't know how to live. We think we know. We very much think that we know. But we don't. Why? Because in the end, we still go to sleep a little bit unhappy. Or we wake up unhappy. Or we experience that unhappiness throughout the day, that distress, that agitation at any little thing. If a mosquito is flying around, the whole time you're swatting at it. And you'll curse that mosquito. You'll clap. Through the whole thing. So this guru, he gives Shanti how? By giving knowledge. He tells you how to live. He tells you the very essence, the knowledge of this world, that Vedanta. But he teaches that thing. So Gurudev, and he was a very good teacher. Very, very, you know, we're here because of Gurudev today. We're only here. Not only here, but around the world also. Over 300 centers. And people of all ages. That Guru gave peace, and he gave peace in the form of knowledge which he shared. He didn't keep it to himself. He shared it with everyone. So yesterday's name was, he is peace, he is Shanti. Today he's the one that gives Shanti. Okay, so now we'll move into this Bhagavad Gita. So, night 88, and we are in chapter 16. And tonight we begin on verse 8. Chapter 16, verse 8 is where we will begin. So this chapter is about the, you know, demonic qualities and the divine qualities in any given person. Right? Bhagavan Shri Krishna, he speaks of in the first few verses of 26 good qualities. So, you know, he kind of classifies the entire mankind, all men and humans of this world. Right? All of mankind, he classifies into these two at any age, any time period. He classifies into these two different sections, and these two, Asuric and Devik. So Devik means that divinely good person. So what good qualities make up a divine person? And then that Asura, that one who has fallen from that divinity, really. Right? What qualities make up that type of person? And really there's a third type also called a Rakshasi. Right? Rakshasa. So we call our neighbors, you know, that Rakshas. I can't believe, I don't know what neighbors do. I can't believe she's playing her music so loud. Or, whatever it might be. So we know that third section also. But, Bhagwan, he doesn't even touch on that. He doesn't even touch on that Rakshas classification. Why? Because one who's a Rakshas can't even be lifted from that mindset. They have to go through some serious tapas. Right? They have to go through some serious reflection, lifetimes and lifetimes over and over. So, many people here also, they'll say, I'm not worthy of going to the ashram. I'm not worthy of going to the temple because of my own personality. There are things that I've done, or there are certain ways that I am, and I want to, but I don't feel like I'm worthy. Bhagwan here himself is saying that if it was you were a Rakshasa, if it was you were that low, you wouldn't even have the opportunity to hear about something called satsang. You wouldn't even know that a temple exists. You wouldn't even know. And Bhagwan is also not saying that everybody is divinely good and you are fallen. You are a Devik. He's not saying or Asura. He's saying that these qualities are actually inherent in all of us. But what we have to do when we read this chapter, when we read all of Bhagavad Gita, when we read our Shastras, is we figure out how that thing can change us. We don't listen to the rest of the qualities of, the Asura, and we say, I know my mother-in-law is an Asura because in satsang I heard so and so and so. That's what Bhagavan Shri Krishna told me. Right? It's not to look at anybody else, it's to look at yourself. And that means that you have to be honest with yourself. It means that you have to be honest. When you're greedy for something, right, you go and you push the lady out of the line because you want the last pack of milk. And then, greediness like anything. You probably have 2 packs of milk home. You don't need this one. But you say, this is the last one on the shelf, and I don't know when, JT or Masi, I don't know when they restock. This could be 2 weeks from now. So you pick up and you push, and then you justify it. You say, my children need to eat. My children need to eat. So you don't even observe that you have some sort of greed inside of you and your personality. You just justify that thing as though you are God's gift to this earth. And we all do it. Every single one of us do it. So then we have to now, as we listen through Bhagavad Gita, we have to figure out, okay, is this quality that I have a divine one, or is it a negative one? Have I fallen from that divinity then? And if it is not a Devik quality, if it is a Asura quality, well then that means that we just have to change. We just have to continue observing when that quality arises within us. Bhagavan wouldn't give this for no reason. He's giving it for you to observe yourself and for you to rise to something higher. Right? That's why we have goals. In any given situation we have, I hope to achieve, I want to gain 10 different employees by this certain time. Or, I want to get 100% on my exam. Or I want my child to be a good person in society. Right? We have goals. So our goal in all of our existence is to get rid of these negative qualities and live by these positive divine qualities. So we'll chant verse 8. Asatyam apratishtam te,
asatyam apratishtam te,
jagadharuna ishwaram,
jagadahurana ishwaram,
aparaspara sambhutam,
aparaspara sambhutam,
kimanyat kama hetukam,
kimanyat kama hetukam.
So Bhagavan is saying, so what is, he says, okay, so what is the philosophy of these asuras? The divine souls, those people, Bhagavan only took about 3 or 4 verses to even explain that. 26 qualities, done. And then he takes the rest of the chapter to talk about people, or to talk about those non-divine qualities. Why? Because, that's more prevalent in our society, actually. When a child steals the cookie from the cookie jar, and the mother asks, the child doesn't say, it was me. He says, I don't know. Right? He says, I don't know. So without even being taught, he also knows how to lie. And he'll also know that it's a wrong thing. A murderer, someone who kills, a murderer, he knows that he has done something wrong also. Why? Because he goes and he hides the body after. Really, and I mean, not in all situations. Some people are intrinsically that horrible that they'll kill in front of all. Right? They'll go and blow up the whole airport. But really and truly, any regular person, they know when they're doing something wrong. That's why they'll go and hide the body, or they'll go and lie to cover it up afterwards. They'll go and make excuses, they'll avoid the situation. So we have a more prominence. It's the easier way out to have negative qualities. It's the easier way out until we get caught. So Bhagavan here is saying, okay, so why are the asuras like that? What is their philosophy? So he says, those demonical people, right? Te ahu jagat asatyam apratishtam. So those demonic people, right? Now these are very harsh words that Bhagavan is using also. When we read something here, someone who lies, Bhagavan says that demonic person, they say, Bhagavan just called me a demon, I'm not coming back in that temple again. That's not, stop being so sensitive about the whole thing. Right? You have it in you, accept it and figure out how to get over it. Really, Swamiji says all the time that to be on this path, you need to be strong. And that means that you have to look at your faults. And when you look at your faults, you love yourself also. You accept them and you continue on. But you have to be strong. You can't say, this path is a very difficult path, it is. But you can't say, I can't meet that expectation and then turn around and go the other way. So Bhagavan says that those demonical people, the ones who live like this, what is their philosophy? Well, they believe that this jagat, this world is asatyam. Asatyam means unreal. Asatyam and apratishtam, meaning that it doesn't have any basis in dharma or adharma. So these asuric people, they think that, this world is just there by chance. And that's most of us actually, most of the society today. They think the world is just there. There has no basis in dharma, in goodness or righteousness or adharma. It doesn't have, and then it is unreal. So it's only here for this time. When I die, then the existence dies also. Nothing continues on after. That's why we think, the world revolves around us. If I wasn't there to do that job, what would happen? It's okay, a little bit. You all want the fun? So Bhagavan says, he says that these asuric people, what do? They think the world is asatyam. They think it is unreal. Everyone looks at the world with their own vision. Right? Yatha drishti tata shrishtihi. They look at the world with their own vision. And our vision is dependent on our understanding or our misunderstanding. So, say somebody walks through this door and she's dragging her feet and her clothes in iron and her hair is a big mess. And she's, watching around everywhere. One person in this room will say, what happened to that girl? She couldn't fix herself before coming in satsang. Somebody else will say, that girl looks like she had a hard day today. I wonder what happened to her. Somebody else will say, I do not like it when people drag their feet. Why she can't pick up her feet and walk? And then that's only 3 people I'm talking now. This entire room is full of different perceptions. So we each have our own vision of the world. In the Mahabharata, Dronacharya had asked the Kauravas and the Pandavas to go on a yatra. He asked Yudhishthira and Duryodhana to go on a tour of the world. He told them, go around this entire world and come back and tell me what you see. That's called a yatra actually. We learn when we can tour and we can see, we learn a lot. We begin to understand ourselves. Right? All those experiences begin to help us understand ourselves. So he said, go around this world and come back and tell me what you see. And Yudhishthira, that Pandava, he said, this world is beautiful. This world is beautiful and everybody is so kind. And so many people helped me and so many people fed me. I saw the most beautiful sights in this whole world. And if I could go back again, I would. But Duryodhana, and Dronacharya looked at him and said, tell me, what did you see now? How was your experience? Duryodhana said, this place sucks. He said this place is only filled with cheaters and liars and murderers, and everything is so ugly. Every day it was only raining. And this place is horrible. I don't know what kind of world it is we live in. But the two of them just went and did a tour of the exact same world. The exact same world the two of them saw, and they both had a different take on it, a different perspective on it. So our vision is dependent on our understanding and misunderstanding. Or, if we go, we'll see so many construction workers or workers, laborers. And one time there was 2 brick layers. They were putting bricks on that ground. Right? 2 pathways were there. And they're putting bricks. So a man went up and he asked one of them, he said, "What are you doing? And what is it that you're doing this?" And then the man said, "I don't know, I'm just laying bricks. I don't care what this is for. I know that when I finish this, I will get my paycheck and I will get to go home and pay my bills. That's all. And that's all I care about. Don't ask me any more questions. Move from here." And the man said, okay. And then he walked over to the other side and he asked this man, he said, "Tell me, I just asked, but what is it that you all are doing? What are you laying these bricks for?" And that second man said, "I'm laying these bricks here, taking my time to make sure each one of them are in line so I can build a pathway for the citizens of this community to walk comfortably." Right? When that flood rises, they'll have something to walk on. They wouldn't sink like quicksand in the mud. They'll have something to walk on. So those 2 men were doing the exact same job, and both of them had 2 completely different visions of what they were doing. So what is that based upon? That's based upon our own intrinsic personality. See, the one who's laying the brick and he's angry with the world, he's saying, "Move from here, I'm only doing this for money. At the end of the day, that's all I want." How unhappy can that man possibly be? How unhappy inside is he to say, all I'm doing this for is just to, how selfish could he be? To say, I'm just laying these bricks just to get my paycheck at the end of the day. I don't care what it's for. That means that he will easily go and build a nuclear bomb. I'm just doing my job, I don't care what this is for. But the man who's standing there and he's doing his job, diligently doing his job with a purpose behind it, he will go home happy with more money also. He will get a raise, he will get the bonus also because of that detachment, because of that love for the work he's doing. He sees a purpose behind what he's doing. But these asuras, these demonic people, are the one with demonic qualities, which is inherent in every one of us. What do? We think that this world is only filled with bad people. We think that, that someone is trying to steal my money, which is why we get so many different security systems, or we have so much insurance on us. Right? We think that everyone is after us, and they don't have any good intention behind it. Right? Swamiji, for instance, or a Mahatma anywhere, they will leave a bag, and when Guruji came to Trinidad 2 years ago, somebody went with his shoes. They went with the Mahatma with the Swami shoes. Now somebody else had another pair, so he was able to wear those, but he was so unaffected by it. He said, "Where's my shoes?" And then somebody brought, he said, "These aren't my shoes." And then they said, "Yes, Guruji, these are the only shoes left in front of the door." Then he said, "These are not my shoes." And then they said, okay, Guruji, don't worry, we'll find them. And then the same time, Guruji is just, somebody else came and put a pair of shoes there right there for him. He put his foot in, and as they're talking to him, he walked out the door to the elevator. So uncommitted he was. He wasn't worried about any attachments. He wasn't worried about, what am I going to get out of this? Where are my shoes? He wasn't affected by that. Now that is a Mahatma that we can interact with. Bhagwan here is talking about that Mahatma that we haven't even met in real life. But we have them walking here on this earth. So Bhagwan here is saying that these asuras, they believe that the world is only filled with badness. And this is their own understanding. That's why they believe the world is asatyam. Asatyam, there's nothing beyond what they can see. If they can see it, then it's there. If they can't see it, then it's not there. Right? Gravity, I don't know why there isn't some sort of, political stance against gravity, because we can't see gravity. But then when you tell them, God is there, they say, God? What God? How can you tell me about something I've never seen before? This world is just here. It just happened by chance. Actually, they go on and they believe that Anishwaram. This world is without God. And without that God, that means that there's no God that rules according to the laws of dharma or adharma. Right? There's no God like that at all whatsoever. So that law of karma, not there. Everything just happens by chance. Everything happens by coincidence. Right? We know, even in Christianity, they say, as you sow, so shall you reap. What you do will come back to you. Right? Now, they don't even believe this. They say, I will live according to what I want to do. How I want to live, what I want to say, when I want to say it, how I want to say it. If I feel like going to work today, I'll go. If I don't feel like going, they'll figure it out. Right? That type of mentality. Bhagwan has allowed also these people in this world, and they don't even believe in him. So what they see is all that there is. They don't believe anything. That's why, you hear one life to live. Or, eat, drink, and be merry in this life because I won't get this chance again. It's only one life that I'm here for. So they don't see anything. You see, so easily we say these terms. Every day we've heard people saying these terms. We didn't have to go and live in Lanka during Ravan's time to hear these phrases. We hear them around us all the time. We also might believe them. Right? So those qualities are also within us. It's not to look outside externally and see who preaches these. It's to see what we believe in. That Shraddha and that faith, right? That Shraddha has to be there. Shraddha and what? Shraddha in the Guru and the Shastras and Bhagwan, whatever it might be. But that Shraddha has to be there. If it's not there, then you won't see your way. You will continue questioning. Your questions will only be based in, I want to prove you wrong. If you have Shraddha in anything, you're asking a question to prove how that thing is correct. So these asuras, when they ask questions, they prove only to start arguments, not to prove that there is the existence of Bhagwan. So when they say that there's no God, that means that nobody created this world. This world just happened to be here. And just, Big Bang Theory, and it just, poof, it appeared. And at some point it will die and then nothing else will exist. So then how did human beings come in this world? Right? How did you come into this world? Well, they believe that this aparaspara sambhutam, right? Kama hetukam. They believe that this humans are only in this world because of the union between man and woman. And that's it. That's all. Lust and passion are what run their senses. That's where their mind is. Only a few months ago, somebody had told that a pandit in Trinidad who was doing puja told those devotees that they cannot place any of the goddesses, Mother Lakshmi, Mother Saraswati, Mother Durga, Mother Sita, they can't place any of them next to Hanumanji. They can't place any of them next to Hanumanji. Why can't they place them next to Hanumanji? The Pandit said, because Hanumanji is a brahmachari and he's not supposed to be near women. But look at his level of thinking. That's what his level of thinking is. Not that Hanumanji is a brahmachari and he sees all women and men as his brother and sister. Not that Hanumanji is Lord Hanumanji and he sees everyone as his mother or father. Not that Hanumanji sees everyone with respect only in his eyes. No, this Pandit thinks he needs to save Hanumanji. Make sure that no women are on Hanumanji because he's a brahmachari. And this is a Pandit who's going and doing puja and telling people, spreading these silly rumors. And now what? Well, we think, Pandit, everybody knows what they're doing. And so, the same way how they question, this asura will question to say, I want to prove you wrong. We should be questioning, how is it? I want to prove you right. Explain that to me more. Tell me, how does that work? What does that mean? This stupid Pandit went and told that Hanumanji can't be around women. But that's his asuric thinking. That's his level of thinking. That's what he predominantly sees. His vision is dependent on his misunderstanding of the world, misunderstanding of the Shastras. And what do? We follow right behind like sheep. We say, yes, the Pandit said you can't put no Devi beside Hanumanji. And then they say, why? And they say, well, I don't know, but the Pandit said so. They continue, and then traditions are created like that. So as we are here in satsang, we have the opportunity, Bhagavan has graced us with the opportunity to be in satsang. It's only by Bhagavan's grace that we're here today. Only by his grace. If it's not, then we would have been a Rakshasa, and then we wouldn't have even known that what satsang means. So we're here in satsang to learn the correct thing, to realize that if it is that you believed what I just said or what that Pandit had said, now you also wouldn't know what the correct thing is. But you have the capacity to act. You have the capacity to ask a question. Bhagavan gave you an intellect to think. So these asuras, they think that this world is only there because of the lustful or that passion between man and woman, and that's how humans are created. Anybody else, anything else in this world just happened by chance. Right? These animals are just there by chance. You know who? I don't know how they came there, but I don't care. I don't need to ask questions. But that's what I believe in. I have no basis in what I believe, but I believe it. So Bhagavan, he says that, in chapter 3, Bhagavan says that Arjuna asks, what is it that causes a man to sin? Why is he inclined to sin? And then Bhagavan says that it's because of kama and krodha, right? Lust and anger. That's what allows him to sin. It's your desire for all these non-committal, ephemeral things around in this world. And here this asura is saying that, the world is run by kama. The world, kama is the highest. We'll see just now that kama is that highest supreme. So we'll go into that next verse. Etam drishtam avastabhya
nashtatmanolpabuddhayah
prabhavantyugra karmanah kshayaya jagato hitaah. So here Bhagavan is saying in this, verse 9, he's saying, so, that's the view of these materialists in this world. And what is it? Avashtabhyaha etam drishtam. Holding on to this view. What view? That the passion of living beings is the cause of the world. It's because of our desire. That's why anyone is here. In Hinduism, in Sanatana Dharma, that Jiva will enter that house by so many different elements. That child will be born to that family because of so many different conditions, so many karmas that will come into play. Right? The parents will, they'll attract that Jiva into their house. There's so many different things, so many samskaras come into play in that. But these asuras, they believe, nope, that boy was just born into that family just because. I was born to my parents, I don't know what I did, but I was born to them. Right? Those asuras think like that. So they hold on to this view that lust and passion is the reason for creation in this world. And then they said, Nashta atmanaha alpa buddhihi. So alpa buddhihi means that the dim-witted one. Right? The one who can't think. Actually, he says that, Shankara Bhashya, he says that one is the one who is destroyed forever. He's the one that's born in the lowest of the lowest worlds. That alpa buddhi, the one with that state, that mental state. And so these demonic, dim-witted fools, these ones who have, dissipated from any type of discipline, their discipline is what they decide. Right? If their workday should start at 11 a.m., their workday will start at 11 a.m. Everybody else will arrive for 7, and they will go on there. No discipline at all whatsoever. What? Ugra karmanaha, one who are cruel by nature. Ugra karmanaha, that's actually Shankara Bhashya, he goes into that also. That's one who's, by nature, this person is cruel. Cruel meaning what? Not that, they go and kill animals for fun. Well, go and collect animals and kill them and then hang up the skin for fun. Not necessarily that type of cruel, but that also is included. But the type of cruel where you are so selfish that nothing else in this world matters. You are the center of attention, and anything that you are happy with is what the rest of the world is happy with. If it is that you want to, eat this, then you will get this for the rest of the household also. Swamiji once told us, Swami Prakashananda once told us, he's incredibly allergic to jeera. Like he breaks out in hives and scratching and very allergic to jeera. And he told us once that this auntie had come to him and she said, Swamiji, I made jeera corn for you. Swamiji, look, I brought for you. And this is right before he was walking in to teach our class or something. And then Swamiji said, oh, no, I can't have. And she said, yes, Swamiji, I made it for you. And then he said, no, I am very allergic to jeera. I have a breakout and I need to take medicine. I'll be on bed and I can't have that jeera corn. And she said, but Swamiji, I made it and I brought it all the way here for you. You should have it. Now, I don't know how Swamiji got out of that situation. But how self-centered is that way of thinking? She made it, so regardless of what kind of physical reaction you will have, you have to eat it. You have to eat it. But that Ugra Karmana, the one who is cruel by nature, they can't even see anything different. They don't understand also that they are cruel. They think that they are God's gift to this nation and anything that they do is the correct thing. Right? So closed-minded. Hinduism is not a closed-minded religion. Right? Spirituality doesn't teach closed-mindedness. Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, is about opening your mind. Completely opening your mind, that your mind is no longer there also. And dissolve that mind completely. So what about these people, the one who has the vision of that the world is just created by passion, that they are demonic, dim-witted fools, and that they are cruel by nature? What? They have no regard for dharma. Right? Ahitaha, they have no regard for dharma. And because they have no regard for dharma, their nature is cruelty. Right? They are dim-witted fools who can't think beyond what they think themselves. What is it? That means that they are an enemy to the world. They are an enemy to the world. They're an enemy to another human, to another animal, to Mother Nature also. The person who just throws that garbage outside of his window while he's driving, he's also one of these Ugra Karmana. Cruel by nature. He has no consideration at all for mothers. He has no consideration for the animal that will go and eat that wrapper also. He has no consideration for the people who have to come and clean that thing, who will have to go and put that in the dump, or that dump will go and set on fire now, and all that fumes will go into the sky, right? And it will only last around Trinidad and Tobago, and then the wind will blow it, and that will spread across the entire world. No consideration of whatsoever. So he is enemy to the world. And Prabhavanti Kshayaya Jagataha. Swami Gambhirananda, he says that he waxes strongly. He waxes strongly for the destroyer of the world. He wants to destroy the world. He doesn't care about this world. And he also stands behind it. No, just throw the thing on the ground now, somebody will come and pick it up. Or leave it here, somebody will come and pick up that thing. Or, no, I need all these styrofoam plates. I need a plate for each, to carry. I can't put it all on one plate. If I eat everything together, how will my body digest it? Right? So self-centered that person is. So asuras don't understand two things. They don't understand the pravritti and they don't understand the nivritti. Pravritti means that giving that proper direction to life. They don't know, they don't understand how to give proper direction to life. And we see that so easily with university students, especially in Canada and America. Right? They really can't figure out what to do in life, and what do? They turn to the clubs or alcohol or to smoking or to all those negative things because it's the easy thing to do. But they really can't. They can't sit down and strengthen their mind or strengthen their intellect and say, this is my plan and this is what I'm going to stick to. Instead, they just say, this looks a bit hard, so I'm not going to bother with this, and I'm going to go this route instead. They don't have that proper direction of life. And not just university students, this is a crowd. We see how many 50, 60 years old. Just a few nights ago also I heard that there's Somebody knows a man who will go into satsangs just to eat food because he doesn't care to work to make a living. He will go and find a satsang every single night and sit down and eat that food and then carry that bag of takari and then leave so he'll have food for the next day, and then he'll find a next satsang also. And anybody who's seen that person, they say, wow, this person is always in satsang. So, wow, how amazing is that? This man has given up his whole life for satsang. Meanwhile, he's really giving up his life so he can eat food and sleep. All day, that's all. So he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand this pravritti. He doesn't understand giving proper direction to his life. And then nivritti, they also don't understand. Nivritti means, withdrawing from the negative thing, withdrawing from the improper thing. When it is that you are in a negative environment, and, say your job, everybody will say, yes, that's me. So say in your job, right, where you work, it's a negative environment. Say with your boss is giving you a hard time with the changes in economy, right, all those things. Whatever it might be that you identify with. Right now, so many people will also come and they'll say, true story, they'll say, my boss or co-workers are giving me such a hard time. They're telling me to do something in this direction, and I know the correct thing to do is this instead. And they know that the correct thing is this, but they're being instructed by their bosses to do this thing instead. And they say, well, what do I do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So then the correct thing to do actually is to leave that job. If you don't want to do the adharmic thing, or you believe that you are doing an adharmic thing, then leave that job. But then they come and they say, leave my job? You want me to leave my job? No, you don't know what you're talking about. You do, but then why did you ask the question? What is the other option? Get your boss fired? Make a plan with the Pandit to get your boss fired? Pandit, you give me the correct mantra now. So we also don't understand. So, you're in a position where you're forced to be doing the adharmic thing. If you can't come to terms with that, then the correct thing to do is to leave that thing. But what? You don't want to leave your job. You don't want to start back from scratch. For whatever reason it might be. But that is also nivritti. You're not withdrawing from the improper thing. Your mind, that that's the incorrect thing, and you're continuing along in it. Or you're so addicted to Playway. Now it's 5 times or something a day? 3 times? A lot of times during the day. A lot of times during the day. I don't know how anybody wins, but people are addicted to it. They keep going and buying over and over, and they're only losing their money. I know somebody who she gambled up until, I don't know, 10,000 or something, some $7,000, $10,000 on one number. And the day she stopped is the day that number played. So she withdrew, at least she withdrew. I mean, the upside. But these asuras, they don't understand this. So us, we don't understand this. We don't know when is the right time to withdraw. Right? Or we don't know what the correct direction in life is to take. That Devi Sampati, that leads us to moksha. Right? That Devi Sampati leads us to moksha. And that Asuri Sampati, that leads us to bondage and sorrow. This type of thinking. Me, myself, and I. Might is right. Right? That might is right. I need to be the best in this thing. And nobody else can beat me. And if they are, I need to push them out. No competition. I need to be the best in this field. Personal ambition is okay, but not when it is underlined by greed and passion and all those negative qualities, competition, unhealthy competition. So the asuras, their motivation is only negative feelings. And they think any good thing are cowardly things, come, let's go to this fete. And you say, no, I'm going satsang tonight. What? I'm going satsang. And they say, you're going satsang? Well, go ahead, Swami, you go. Go satsang. Go and enjoy. So they think anything good is cowardly. Right? They don't think anything good of goodness. They have to cheat and lie and find their way to win in the end. So to achieve anything, they believe that you have to be smart or clever. To achieve anything, they believe that you have to be smart or clever. And parents also, they teach, be smart. You must be smart, but they never teach that you must be good. Right? They teach that thing. So we grew up with this mentality. It's like our intrinsic nature is goodness, right? Satchit Ananda, bliss. Our nature is bliss, happiness, right? Peace, Shanti, all those goodness, everything good. These Devic qualities will only bring that Shanti, will bring you closer to that thing. It's like day and night, right? If you see that sun rising, well, daytime has to follow. The sun can't rise and suddenly it's nighttime. Right? If that sun is rising, then daytime has to follow. We are approaching the day. But we cannot see the sun at night. Right? We can't see the sun at night. We might see a reflection on the moon on a nice day, nice night. But we don't see that sunshine in the nighttime. So when it is that we go away from our nature, when we continue developing and encouraging these negative qualities, we go straight into that darkness. We go into that nighttime. At any moment, you have the opportunity to do the correct thing or to not do the wrong thing. You have that opportunity and you make that choice. And that means that you have to become very, very aware and observant of your own thinking, of your own feelings, of the way that you act, of what you are used to, what's habitual, what you are used to doing. You have to become very, very conscious of that thing and say, no, you know what, this is the wrong thing. If it is that you use styrofoam cups every time you want something to drink in the kitchen, well, you must know that styrofoam is contributing to landfill, and that takes how many years to get rid of? And in what ways does it take to get rid of also? How that is affecting our entire environment. So very simply, I'm drinking out of this cup that is not reusable, or this water bottle that is not reusable. What can I do to change or to help? Because the world is not only about you or us. So then we chant verse 10. Kamam ashritya dushpuram, dambhamanam madanvitaha, moha grihitva sadgrahan, pravartante shuchivrataha. So Bhagavan here he says, ashritya dushpuram kamam. What do these people, asuras, do? They surrender. They give in completely to what? To insatiable desires and insatiable passions. Right? Ashakya puranam. That means that one who cannot be satisfied. When a drug addict, he begins drugs when he starts doing, whatever type of cocaine, whatever drug it is. And he'll take, small doses, and then eventually that's not enough, and you keep increasing, and then he becomes addicted. And then even the highest dose that he can get is not enough for him. It's an insatiable desire, right? It cannot be mellowed. It cannot be not. That desire is always in, it cannot be filled. They keep going and wanting more. Actually, we ourselves, we create complexity for our own selves. Why? By only increasing the conditions for our own happiness. We only want more. We want more and more and more and more. We have to go searching for that thing that will fulfill that desire. Only searching. So what do? We make our lives complex. We're not happy with living in this house, so we have to go build a bigger house. And then, well, I'm not very happy in this country, so I'm going to move to a whole other country. And then what happens when you go to that country? Well, then you're unhappy in that country. And then you have to downsize also because you have to work. So we've just made our lives so much more complex because of our desires for what? To be happy. We just continue going. So these asuras, us, right, this quality that's there within us, we surrender completely to these desires. Instead of controlling our senses, or controlling our mind, we become slaves to them. When we see that piece of chocolate and you know you're not supposed to be eating chocolate, like me. I'm allergic to chocolate, and I love chocolate. But when you see that piece of chocolate and it's laid out in that nice Cadbury wrapper, and then they have a new branding on it, and they say, Easter edition, or Christmas edition, and you say, well, I won't get this again for the rest of the year, It's only this time I'll get it. So maybe I'll have it this one time, just this one time. And then you say that a few times for the year. A few times for the day also, whichever one. Right, so that desire becomes, instead, I've just become a slave to my senses. I've just become a slave to my tongue. I've just become a slave to my mind. I can't even control those things. My intellect, see, Gurudev says that there are 4 different personalities in you. There's your physical personality, there's your emotional personality, your intellectual personality, and your spiritual personality. And when it is, those don't line up. They don't add up with one another. Only agitation is left. So when I see that piece of chocolate, my tongue knows that thing tastes very good. My emotions will say, well, that thing will make me happy if I have it, I will have that thing. My intellect will tell me, well, I'm allergic to this thing, so I should not have it. And then my spiritual personality will tell me, okay, well, on one end, I want it because it tastes good, and on the other hand, I know it is wrong for me. So my spiritual personality is saying, well, the dharmic thing to do, the right thing to do is to not eat it. But instead, what do? I go and I chow it down, and I buy 2 chocolate bars too, just to make up in case I finish the first one too fast. You keep eating. So then what happens? Well, agitation has just occurred in my personality. And afterwards, I should not have eaten that thing. I shouldn't have wasted my money on that thing. I can't believe it. I'm never eating that thing again in my life. And then next holiday comes and you eat it. So these asuras, this quality that we have within, we surrender actually. It's not that, we're forced to, we surrender willingly. We say, I know that thing tastes good, so I will eat it. We willingly surrender to that thing. Now what happens? Damba, mana, mada, anvitaha. These people who do that thing, we are filled with what? Why do we do that thing actually? Because we are filled with that conceitedness, that vanity. We're actually hypocrites, not pride. Right? That's what these asuras are. They're filled with all these vanity, pride, arrogance. They're hypocrites. Why? Because we preach one thing. Actually, we preach one thing. We tell our children, no, you can't go here, you can't go there. And then we go and we do that thing. Why? Because we enjoy it. But our child, they shouldn't enjoy it. It's not a good environment for them. But I enjoy that thing. Those asuras who have just surrendered completely as slaves, they are actually hypocrites. They're vain like anything. They're conceited like anything. They're arrogant like anything. And that manifests in many different ways. We'll look at somebody else, while I'm talking, you're saying, I know somebody just like that, I know exactly who she's talking about. Right? But that arrogance will also manifest in so many different ways. You make so many excuses for why you are right. So many excuses you make for why you are correct in that situation. But I haven't had chocolate in a long time. It's been 3 whole months. Imagine if Swamiji only ate jeera because he liked how it tastes. He'd break out, he'd give satsang from the hospital only. Right, so but Swamiji has that discipline. He is not, alpa buddhi. He understands this world. Why? Because our guru would have taught him. So, then what? Kritva asad grahan mohat ashuchi vrataha pravartante. So, what do? They adopt this evil intention. Right? They hold on to that thing. They adopt that whole thing and they keep it, they make it one with themselves. They hold on to these evil intentions. Why? Due to delusion. Delusion means that I think, I see that. The guru is the one who will tell you, that rope is not a snake. That rope is a rope. That rope is not a snake. And if you have Shraddha like Guru, you say, oh yes, I see the light now. It is a rope. But if you don't, if you're so arrogant, if you are a hypocrite, if you are so vain, you say, he probably doesn't see what I see, he's looking at something else. He just didn't see the snake left already. He didn't see what I saw. So that's delusion. That delusion. So due to delusion, they adopt this evil intention, and not knowing anything else proper, not knowing what to do, not knowing the correct thing to do because of this delusion, what do? They work like anything and they engage in these negative actions in the world. They continue going and going. They have no shame, as we'll say. They continue going and working in that negative substratum of how they, for their motivations on how to work. They just continue going on and on. But not they, we. We continue going and living that way. You know, we know what the correct thing to do, but it's a little bit too hard to do, so we'll choose the easier path. Or, you know, I don't want that coworker to get a promotion, so, well, I'll just, I don't know, go and delete everything from his computer. Or, I won't tell him about that meeting that we're having, because I want to be in that meeting instead. And, if I don't get this promotion, then my family wouldn't eat, I wouldn't have enough money. So, for my happiness, at someone else's expense. And you justify that thing like anything. And you only have to justify it because you know it's the wrong thing, actually. So we think that we know everything, but really we don't. We work with this false determination. We lie to ourselves also. We think that this is the correct thing, knowing that it is the wrong thing. And we're determined, we're motivated by that. And we continue going and going and going and going. In our everyday lives, not just at that bout of sorrow, not just once or twice within your lives, throughout the entire thing. We're living in this, we are deluded. We are deluded in this moha. We are deluded. So to get out of that means that what? We have to start inculcating the positive qualities. These first few verses are the positive, the Devic qualities, the divine qualities. Honesty is there. Right? Not that Nashuchi, that Asura is unclean. Unclean within and unclean without. That's why his vision is so construed. Right? Hanumanji can't be on that bedi. His vision is so wrong. Why? Because he's only encouraging these negative qualities within. Gurudev says that, this nice thing, he says in Satyug, we have the 4 yugas. So that in that Satyug, good and evil were in 2 different worlds. They were in 2 different worlds. So in Devalok and Asurlok. Right? They're in 2 different worlds. In Treta Yuga, it was in the same world. That good and evil was there in Ram and Ravan. Good and evil existed in one world. And then in Dwapar Yuga, it happened in the same family. Good and evil was there in the same family. So Pandavas and Kauravas. So it kept getting smaller. And now what? In Kali Yuga, where we are now, this good and evil is in the same person. Right? That good and evil is no longer in 2 different worlds, or in 2 different people, or in 2 different families. It's now all in one person. Right? So that line between good and evil also, it thins and it blurs. You can very easily, we could say the Kauravas are evil and the Pandavas are good. Ravan was bad and Ram is good. Right? Nelson Mandela is good and Hitler is bad. We can easily say those things. But when we lie, we say, well, we were being honest in our lying. Right? That line, that we can't even, that's how deluded we are. We can't even tell also when we are doing something so wrong because we've justified it to be something so good in our mind. So who will lead you on that right path? That Guru will. Or that Guru will. Being in satsang will. And listening to this knowledge over and over every single day. In Trinidad, you're not at a loss for satsang. I grew up in Canada, and on weekends you got satsang, and that's if you went to the temple or you knew somebody also. You didn't get satsang. In school, religion was not taught. It's a secular society. Here, in school, in those high schools, they have 1 period a week for the Hindus, the Muslims, the Christians, to go in their separate classrooms. and they learn about their religion. In Trinidad, we have no laws to learn about our religion. And religion is not there for fun. It's not there to spend some time on a Sunday morning or on a Sunday night. It's not there for fun. It's for you to be guided along in this path. Path of what? Path of life. Right? Our life. We can't go into the surgeon theater not knowing what we're doing. We also can't go in thinking that we know what we're doing. So we have the opportunity to be in satsang, and in satsang is where we'll inculcate these Daivic qualities, these positive ones, and these negative qualities, very easily they'll also go away. You know, they say conquer hate with love. Conquer hate, and then we say, well, that is a very easy thing to say. You have not met my neighbor. You have not met my mother-in-law. That's much easier said than done. But it's only easier said than done for you. Right? If you don't want to do it, then, well, it won't be easy. But if you want to do it, if you want to be a better person, you know, a nice quote that I read is, if you met yourself today, would you be impressed? If you met yourself today, would you be impressed? So if you can honestly say, and you don't need to, tell a friend, if you say to yourself, no, I am not impressed, then figure out why and fix it. Become impressed by yourself. Okay, so there we will stop at verse 10.